everyone, it's Tina, and welcome to my Genshin channel. Nod-krai marketing is out, and we got a closer look to some of the characters you've seen in the previous Nod-krai trailer video. There's a lot to talk about since Inafa has already dropped some pretty important lore to us before we even set our foot in Nod-krai. But before jumping into more, we have to talk about one thing: the moon wheel. First, we heard Inafa saying the moon wheels, Nod-krai's vision-like gadgets, were built by the usurper along with the 3 gods who abandoned us. And this definitely got some weird eyes from the lore community, since for the most part the word usurper was used for the heavenly principles. I cross-checked this in both Japanese and Chinese, and it made me just even more confused. Usurper, or in Japanese sensu, actually was used quite a few times for the heavenly principles throughout the game in various forms. Usually it was Nubilet who referred to them like that, but there also has been some inconsistencies, like Apep not saying usurper in any other languages besides English. Nubilet also notably only mentioning it as the first usurper or usurper king, alluding that there might be others like that too. And in Japanese, what Inafa said was not even the same word, it's not sensu. However, the chances of her actually talking about the heavenly principles is still quite high, especially after reading her character story about the moon wheel. There we read about Niflheim, which is a realm of primordial Iceland called in Norse mythology, so safe to assume meaning Nod-krai or Shiznya in Genshin, and that the ancient dragons retrieved a suspicious sample from the detritus of the humans. Though certain means I managed to acquire a working moon wheel, one of Niflheim's ritual items, or to be more accurate, a plating given by the traitors to their human followers, allowing them to communicate. Much like the wisdom conferred by our sovereign, the moon wheel relies on a purer form of power and not elemental energy, tainted as it is by the usurper. We even know that light can retract into countless colors, but people stop at 7 because they are too lazy to count. Perhaps the elements are like that too. Despite all the inconsistencies with the name, I think the most likely scenario is that the heavenly principles did make both the moon wheels and later on the gnosis, possibly because the moon wheels were just too OP, and they wanted to give something less powerful as dividing this energy into elemental form, and that's how it became the gnosis, as well as the visions that the archons give to the people. However, the moon wheel is supposed to be more pure than that, since it was made by the moons, who the dragons are calling traitors now for a good reason. We got more insight into this beef from the new fractured Halo weapon, where we found out that after Nibelung left Tibet and the heavenly principles came, the dragons did try to ask for help from the moons. However, from that time on, even the endless snowfields turned to blackened earth, while the volcanoes became clogged with ice, and they still did not or could not speak, though that was an age when there were still 3. The visions also could be something like a second version of the moon wheels, either by limiting their power or having the god's gaze, kind of like a spying tool, and to have a firmer control over Tibet. Nonetheless, Kukulkan and the other dragon lords plan to create a new moon instead of the supposed 3 traitors has failed, and this would explain why the dragons and later on Nod-krai would try to replace the remaining 1 moon who they see as the enemy. We got a better picture of the current Nod-krai with some factions trying to create a new moon, while the Frost Moon being the only faction still left, waiting for an answer from the Frost Moon. So with that, let's jump right into the first remarketing of the new Dendro Catalyst, Lauma. Nefer talks about her, saying, "Under our Moonchanter's most benevolent watch, no innocents or animals shall come to harm." Or so I would say, but should the law of the jungle falls away, some sharp-fanged beast will surely be starved to the taste of flesh. She's obviously referring to the Wild Hunt, which is just Nod-krai's way of describing the Abyss. They are more active here than anywhere else, given the fact that Nod-krai was the second region after Khaenri'ah to suffer from the cataclysm, and Lauma, as a member of the Frost Moon Theans, will have the moon wheel rather than the vision obviously, and her constellation is Servan Nieva, meaning snow white deer. And this is something we have already seen. She has very deer-like elements, even possibly one of her abilities is that we can get around faster with a deer as seen in the first Nod-krai teaser. Though they are the indigenous residents of the land, the Frost Moon Theans do not seem to fit in with the Nod-krai of today. They are too ancient, too stuck in their ways, too rooted in worship of a god that they have never seen. This paragraph refers to what I talked about earlier, about the fact that the moons are viewed as traitors for at least for the ancient dragons, and in today's Nod-krai they are simply forgotten besides this faction. They believe that the wintry woods are their shield and sanctuary, and that the light of the full moon can dispel all that ails. They pray to the moon, on their lips as eternal refrain, "O goddess of the frost moon, when will you answer our wishes?" And when they receive only silence, they turn and ask again, "Oh, Lady Moonchanter, when will the goddess of the Frost Moon answer our wishes?" Again, important to remember the ancient history about how two of the moons have died, while the last one, the Frost Moon, still stays silent. We aren't sure exactly at this point how Columbina is coming into the picture, given the fact that her first introduction to us was she singing and mocking Dottore, and suddenly it seems like she is against the Fatui, but the Frost Moon seals worship her in some ways as the new moon, while seemingly still waiting for an answer from the Frost Moon. Thus did Lauma step out from beneath the shades of the trees into the light of the moon. Thus did the congregation bow before her radiant antler crown and silver-blooded totem. Thus was she anointed the agent for an absent god. The last lines describe Lauma's deer-like character, as well as mentioning once again that she is the prophet for the Frost Moon, with little to no success in establishing communication at the present. And that's about all we know about her, but alongside Innafa's addition to the game, I think we have now a better picture of how nod-krai views the moons and why the Frost Moon steals are somewhat outliners in this region. Moving on to a more light-hearted character, Aino, the 4-star Hydro Claymore, who actually has a vision. Remember what I said at the very start? Moon wheels are for communication with the now only one moon, but it seems like for the most part other nod-krai factions will simply have vision still. One interesting part though is that to my knowledge we don't see the vision on her for now, unlike the moon wheel which we could see on both Innafa and even on Lauma in some of the videos. So it could be still some secret in the future how they look like and if they actually differ from other regions' visions. According to Innafa, you wish to know how to make friends with Aino? Analyzing data, generating answer. First, say no to savory krunkakes. Second, admire Aino's inventions. Third, play with Aino often. She's just a pretty happy and silly inventor who's the founder of the Clink Clank Krunkake craft shop, as the name suggests, specialized in making the best krunkake. Her constellation is Tsistellura Mira, which means just an amazing tiny little box, referring to her toolboxes. A chaotic place, lashed by howling frigid winds. For many, this is their first impression of nod-krai, but once you familiarize yourself with its rules and patiently explore the land, you'll come to know that it is full of marvelous, wonderful things as well. As you shop, you may meet a robot girl making purchases like anyone else with a clanking of curiously shaped foundries echoes through the markets. If you're lucky, you may also catch a glimpse of robots speeding by, ask around, and you'll learn that these are all Aino's creations. We find out that nod-krai only looks cold and rusty from the outside, and just like we could see from either the Innafa anime or the nod-krai map, the place is actually pretty lively. It's just a melting pot of the people of Tibet and their cultures. We also find out that Innafa is not Aino's only invention, but I would assume Innafa is still her biggest project, since for her consciousness, she also needed the core of an ancient dragon, which is not something you run into often. If this piques your curiosity and you wish to meet this genius inventor, it's no tall order. Just walk out of Nash Town and head to the outskirts where a giant metal building awaits. Before even stepping inside, you'll be greeted by a unique aroma, a blend of machine oil, metal, and krunkakes, the smell of home for Aino, who stays here with Innafa, her all-purpose household robot. Aino lives life by a simple creed: invent interesting mechanical wonders for fun, and when not tinkering away, enjoy the best snack in the world, Innafa's freshly baked krunkakes. However, not all are lucky enough to meet this genius mechanic. Any who do not appreciate her creations will see the craft shop's door slammed shut in their face. So, before flooding her with endless new requests, maybe shower Aino's designs with some well-deserved praise first. Otherwise, well, wouldn't it be a shame if disgusting krunkake started popping out of your next mechanical device for whatever reason? Seems like Aino lives and dies by krunkakes. She hates savory krunkakes, she gives disgusting krunkakes to her haters, and the first task she gave to Innafa was to make krunkakes. We know that she is nod-krai's best forge, because we know from the nod-krai concept that according to the second best forge, if you meet Aino, I'm sure it will be pretty clear why they are the second best only. And we even know from Innafa's voice lines that Innafa don't usually dare to execute garbage removal tasks by the batch, because when Aino can't find what Aino needs, she sometimes borrows a nut or bolt from Innafa instead. And finally, we have the long-awaited resident electropolearm hot guy, Kirill Chudomirovich Flins. He is the Ratnik of nod-krai, which means the warrior of nod-krai, and his constellation is Laterna Vigilis, which means kinda like the lantern guard. He also has a moon wheel, which is pretty interesting, but more about that later. According to Illuga, who seems to be a newer member of the Lightkeepers, Sir Flins live in a lighthouse far away from here. He's decisive in action and seems quite tactically adept, or so I hear. Sorry, I can't say for certain. I'm a new joiner and have never worked with him directly. Everything I've heard comes from the Starshinya. Starshinya was actually mentioned beforehand. In other languages, it just means Lantern Master or Master of Lightkeepers. And as you know, the Lightkeepers is another faction of nod-krai. Their job is to save the land from the attacks of the Wild Hunt, also known as the Abyss. And we know the most about them from the Long Night's Oath artifact set, which I explained further in my previous 2 nod-krai explanation videos, so make sure to check them out if you're curious. But what you need to know about the Lightkeepers is that they were established after a cataclysm as a paradise sheltered by their light tower. They stood up against the Tsaritsa, gaining their autonomy, until later the then Starshinya, or Master of Lightkeepers, led the Fatui into the land, and since then causing a bit of an iffy situation between them and the autonomous nod-krai. You want to know what I think about him? I suppose he's a man with many stories. Don't you find it strange how a warrior like that carries himself with such a refined air? And then there is his expertise in using his eloquence to get what he wants. This current Ratnik, the warrior of nod-krai, however, might not have a bright future ahead of him, as we know that sacrifice had always been the Ratnik's fate and honor. He's gonna be playable, so I don't think he would die during the game's timeline, but it's definitely not a job that guarantees promising retirement plans. During harvest season, no visitor would be considered too strange a guest at the festives. As the setting sun cast its light over the marketplace, such a scene soon unfolded. A certain gentleman arrived as well, and curious locals soon drew him into their lively conversations. Not surprising, Flins definitely can catch some eyes, is all I say. The gentleman introduced himself, Flins, a warrior of the Lightkeepers. He had been awarded a civilian commendation medal in recognition of his squad's efforts in repelling abyssal creatures. The incident happened a long time ago. Though no one had stepped forward to organize it, the people wordlessly agreed to express their gratitude this way. The medal had been heavy, delivered to him in a time-worn box. Considering how many casualties the operation had racked up, Flins did not think even 10 medals could do justice to the losses. There used to be more of them, 7 or 8 in his squad, but now only Flins remained, guarding the cemetery near the lighthouse. Unfortunately, given his job, he lost a lot of members in Lightkeepers, and we could see him guarding the cemetery too in the trailer, actually in front of his dad's grave. We found out that after translating the grave's text. His lantern also seemed to either store some souls or have some power for sure, not just because it reminds me of trash, but also since his fate is to save souls, and that part reminded me, of course, to Capitano, who will become playable soon, guys, I swear it is soon! Nonetheless, like his ancestors before him, he prayed to an old god that no one now called upon, as well as to the Knyazes he had once held domination over. This could explain why he has a moon wheel instead of vision. So far, only the Frostmoonsians and, well, the ancient dragons who got a hand of them had moon wheels. But if the Lightkeepers also praying for the old god, possibly the Moon Sisters, then a moon wheel makes more sense to him to communicate with the Frost Moon, even if she isn't answering now. For a moment, the crowd fell silent. The story brought to mind many things. The Wild Hunt, the monsters, as well as other memories that weighted heavily on the heart. Sorrow rendered them speechless. Some others had questions, and so they asked them, but Flins did not answer. He kept his head down, seemingly reminiscing. Compared to other Lightkeepers, Flins spoke with an air of elegance. He did not deign to answer questions about his origins or whether he had any siblings. Instead, he was more inclined to talk about distant, unrelated matters. He had a way of recounting events with perfect measuredness, just as in conversation, never excessive. The past, through his words, made listeners think to themselves, what an unforgettable tale. He does sound pretty cold. Even in the trailer, he was very short-worded. Especially in Japanese, he barely used any grammar, and the one he used was also just really short. It seems like he won't answer questions about his origins or family, so that possibly is gonna be some extra lore we're getting from his story quest. But he does talk about distant things, so I assume it will be him who will learn more about this mad monk that now came up 2 times already. One in connection to the Lightkeepers in their artifact set, and another time in the new nod-krai map. Considering the vast majority of his audience lacked much life experience, many who listened to Flins did so out of curiosity, and it just so happened that his actions fit precisely this need. He invariably selected tales perfectly tailored for public retelling. So he's kind of a storyteller for children. It seems like he's pretty good at it. He might rival Nefer and Nicole in storytelling then, but I'll expect him to drop some lore about nod-krai to us as well, not just the children. And this basically is for the new drip marketing. If there's any more coming in the future for Varka or anyone else, I obviously make a video about them too. But I just wanted to collect these three together because I thought it was very interesting who has moon wheels and who has visions. Nonetheless, I hope this little video was fun and I just cannot wait to learn more about nod-krai. You already know I'm gonna be in Cologne, Germany for Gamescom when they said they're gonna be releasing even more nod-krai stuff. So at the latest, August 19th should be when we get more nod-krai things. But I'm pretty sure even until then we get some crumbs that I will make content on this channel about. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give a like. And if you wanna see more like this, then make sure to subscribe. I was on my Genshin channel and see you in the next one. Bye bye!